Wondering how to fall completely in love with the people and things that surround you at home? I've spent the last 15 years studying how and where families thrive and what relational and house characteristics ignite us with that homey feeling. On this podcast, we uncover how our brains process the people we live with and the houses we live in so we can confidently create our homes to be wonder-filled connection magnets. Ready to give up the decision fatigue, comparison hives, overwhelm ulcers, and confusion chaos? You are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Thornock. Welcome to Becoming Home. What's up, homies? I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so excited to introduce you to Simone Nofel. Did I say that right, Simone?
Yes.
Okay. I always get nervous when I'm saying people's names. I just want so much. Names are important, you know. Simone Nofel. You guys, she's at Hearty and Free. And I love this because hearty, like substancy, and hearty, like your heart. Hearty and Free, that's her handle on Instagram. That's her website. That's everything. And Simone is an applied, I had to write this down because this is a hard word for me to say too. Applied epigeneticist.
Yeah, applied epigeneticist.
Okay, yes, an author. So tell us, okay, first of all, hi, Simone. Hi. So glad you're here.
Thank you.
Tell us what an applied epigeneticist actually does.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can, like a lot of different fields you can go into with it. So it's basically what the study is. It's a study of how our lifestyle habits and choices influence the way our genes are expressed. And so we're all born with a set of genes, and you can kind of think of each of them having a light switch. And so some of them are turned off and some of them are turned on. And through like nature versus nurture, these light switches can be altered. And so really what I'm interested in the field, like in real everyday life experience, is working with people and turning off the negative genes and turning on the more positive ones. And so that's eating habits, that's exercise, that's thought processes, and mental health, that's spiritual well-being. There's so many things that are encompassed with that. But you can just kind of think of the work that we do is a little bit of behavior modification with lifestyle change. So like life and health coaching is really what I have been doing with that. And it's been really fun.
That is so amazing. I feel like we're even more kindred than I thought originally. Epigenetics is so cool because sometimes it's easy to think, oh, my family's like this. I'm just like this. I was just born this way. I have to do it. My mom did it. It's my path. And it's just a load of hooey. Just frankly, you might have some things that are automatic, maybe the given, the default, because of your patterning or because of your upbringing or because of your body. But epigenetics blows it all up to come back to agency and choice.
Yes. And that's why I fell in love with the field. I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to study this. And getting my certification was like really eye-opening. And it was almost like it was for me more than anything. And really just catapulting my own self-healing. And so, yeah, it's just really extraordinary when we can take responsibility for our own health and realize that our bodies are so powerful. And as long as we're giving our bodies what it needs, it can self-correct, which is amazing.
It's a miracle. It's so cool. Okay, well, I'm glad we got through the first line of your bio. Let's continue. So you're also an author. You write children's books. Pause. Yes, tell us everything about that. Because these books are beautiful. Everybody go look them up, but tell us about them, Simone.
Yes. So the series is a 5-part series. So there's 5 books in the series. It's called Exploring the Elements. So each of the books are corresponding with the natural elements. So there's air, fire, water, earth, and ether. And it really just dives into like where you can find it in your everyday life, how to interact with it safely, and how it influences the human body. So I would say it's like for ages 10 and under, depending on your level, like you'll know.
So good. This is amazing. I feel like it's Captain Planet, all these things coming together creates this power vortex that can be you and your family. Simone is living in Mexico right now with her family. They're on this grand adventure. I was telling her before we started here that it's -5 where I am right now, degrees Fahrenheit. It is 85 degrees Fahrenheit where she is. So we're all living vicariously with Simone. Simone is this outdoor enthusiast. And what I really love about you the most there's a lot of things that I love about you, but I think what I love about you is how you integrate nature and the elements and then epigenetics and like our regular life, and how they just swirl so beautifully in your world and in your work. And I'm so excited. That's what we're going to be talking about today. So we're going to be talking about feng shui, you guys. We're taking a feng shui angle, which we haven't done before on the podcast, and I'm thrilled, especially with Simone. So I would like to toss the ball into your court, Simone. Can you give like a little breakdown of what feng shui is and how that integrates with all these things that you're passionate about?
Yeah, so I actually found like my love for feng shui about 3 years ago. And we were living in a new spot, and I was like, okay, here's my opportunity to create the space where it feels most harmonious. And I think we can all say like our homes are safe spaces, right? Or we would want them to be that way. And so part of that for me is the energetics of your home. And some people, and here's the thing too, is because we're all so unique that with feng shui, we could actually create it to match our own frequencies or the frequency of our family. And so the origin of feng shui is it's ancient Chinese practices and philosophy. And the majority of what feng shui is based off of is the natural elements. And in feng shui, it's a little bit different than the elements in my series. So within feng shui, there's wood and metal included. There's a little bit of difference there, but it's really just about creating the energy flow within your home. So there's certain ways that you can structure your furniture, position your furniture, certain ways like cardinal directions where your bed should be facing. It's so many things that you can like really dive into, and I just really have only scratched the surface, but it's really enjoyable for me.
I agree with you. I feel like I've just scratched the surface too, and it blows my mind every time I pick up a feng shui thing, website, book, video. I'm always like, this is so great. This is what it's all about. So when it comes to play spaces, though, it's interesting. I mean, right? Because our kids are naturally so good at flowing. They're naturally taking in energy and switching up energy, and 1 minute awake and 1 minute asleep and 1 minute angry and hot and the other minute cool. And you know what I mean? They're just doing all the things. How can we take play space? Like, what does feng shui have to do with play spaces? Is what stands out to you?
Yeah, I mean, you can really utilize any space. It could be like your home office, be if you actually have an office away from your home, like you can structure even just your desk in a way where the energy flows better. And so when it comes to play spaces, the main thing that stands out to me is incorporating natural elements within the play space. So I know there might be a lot of people listening who are into Montessori curriculum, stuff like that, which is a lot of wood, which there you go, you probably already have that in your play space. But if you're not into Montessori, you're just like, what should I do to bring in some more nature inside? It could just be as simple as having house plants, and there's like a long list of things that you can bring into your play space. It could even be like, if you have a speaker in the room, you could play nature sounds. There's just a lot of ways that I think children would catch on to, like, ooh, like this feels good, I like this, and like, thanks mom and dad, for bringing this in for me. And a huge thing, like for me, in play spaces and in spaces in general, when it comes to feng shui, is the furniture placement. I have found that my entire inner energy can shift dependent on like where a couch is. Like that's like my main thing. Whenever I'm like looking for a new house, we travel, we're like nomadic, and I'm like, okay, like the couch, like that's like the main thing for me, where it's positioned. So if you have like a desk where your children might do like arts and crafts, like positioning them so that they're facing the door. So like the entryway of the room is ideal. And that's just like probably one of the main like pieces of furniture in a playroom is like a desk or a sitting space. So we should never really have our backs to the door when it comes to feng shui and like the energy flow. And I think that is probably like the biggest piece of furniture that would be in the play space. And if you also want to think of like the walls, so like your walls can be areas where you usually have like shelving, right, or like organizational pieces in your room. And within feng shui, it's really important to have space like in between your wall. So if you do have something up against the wall, like have like even a half of an inch instead of it being like right up against your wall, like that's best. Even when you're picking out certain furniture or, bins and stuff like that, if you can have like airflow in the design of whatever you're choosing, that's more optimal when it comes to feng shui. So if you think of like a table, for example, instead of having like a solid just chunk of wood, maybe like like a cube chunk, instead of having like that, having like an opened hollow center, or maybe some room underneath it, like between the bottom of it and the floor, just having some airflow. So that's also a big component when it comes to like furniture shape and design. And then another really huge thing, and this is feng shui, but this is also holistic health, the lighting in your play space. Like trying to avoid the fluorescent bright lights and having like yellow tone lights, or if you can, even just like playful, colorful lights is way better than having like the really bright, I think it's called fluorescent. There might be another word for it, but yeah, like those bright fluorescent lights. We try to avoid them, and we're in like routine, or we're like there for a little bit of time. Like here in our houses, we have fan lights, and there's like 4 bulbs, and they're not the greatest. So we just take out 3 out of the 4. So there's only 1, and it's dimmer than what it would be with all 4 of like the bright lights. We've also done a lot of taping. So if you're not wanting to invest in like the higher quality, like low yellow light bulbs or red light bulbs, you can always tape your, if you have fluorescent bulbs and you don't want to like just waste them, you can tape them. So you can use electrical tape so you don't start a fire. Use electrical tape of any color you want, and it'll just dim. You can leave like a little bit of the bulb exposed, so you still do have that light. But yeah, electrical tape on light bulbs is a great option. But yeah, the lighting can really influence even childhood development and their brains, their behavior. Lighting is a huge thing. And for us and our family, but we have been trying to limit the amount of light after sun goes down. So on sunset is when we try to turn off lights. We try to use more candles, of course, depending on the age and the place where you want to, the age of your children and the places where you could actually have the candles. It might not be safe, but, just use your best judgment. And if you can use candlelight after sunset, then that's great too. Red lights are awesome, but yeah, those are like the main juicy points of feng shui in a play space.
That's so good. You have a little toddler. So you have a toddler and you have a baby being born soon. So how old is your baby, and how do you do candles with the baby?
So my son is 3. We have always exposed him to fire. That is one of my core values of instilling respect for nature and respect for danger instead of fear. And so from from the age that he could actually like stand and like hold himself up, we've been doing hand over hand, which is like, hand over hand is basically where the child is holding whatever object and then your hand is over the child's hand. So that's hand over hand technique. So if he was like holding an incense, I would put my hand on his hand, light the incense, blow it out. He could see the smoke, and I still have, control over that aspect of it. But because we were doing it from maybe like 10 months old, he has the ultimate respect for fire, and he's never like, I don't have to hide like matches or lighters. Like he automatically knows that what it is and what it's for. And I think that's right in our children's environment, like knives, anything, outlets that might be dangerous. We can teach them those things and how to respect it. And so when it comes to fire, again, if you haven't been doing that from the beginning and you want to start doing that with your toddler, again, hand is great. Exaggerating certain things, like don't touch it, ouch, like making it like, oh, ow, like ouchie, you're gonna have a boo-boo, or you're gonna have an injury, like whatever word that you usually use. I know I'm a big fan of like desensitization, or like these baby steps into really understanding what the real cause could be. So like, for example, if it is fire safety, like you can show them a picture of either maybe when you personally got burned, or maybe just like find it on the search engine and say like, oh, 3rd-degree burn, and be like, you don't want your kids to look at that, like that's a big ouchie, and kind of show them that. But yeah, with candles, my son, he's 3 now, he knows how to use a match and light a candle. Like we obviously supervise him and we're right there. But there's never like an instance where I'm like, oh no, like he might wave it in the air and catch his hair on fire or something like that. So just and be patient with it too. Like it might seem like it's a big step for you and your family. So just go gradually, little by little. Might want to start with something like I said, an incense where the flame isn't active and you blow it out right away. But they could still see the smoke and kind of interact with the little ember at the end. And then maybe the next step would be a candle or something like that. But play around with it and see what feels good for you.
Like writing wild notes. My kids are very adventurous with fire, but I don't think that we have come to the respect that I would prefer. So we're going to work on that. I really like that idea. What a fun thing to do. So feng shui is this interesting thing that incorporates nature. It helps us. I'm going to take a leap into the unknown, kind of known. It feels like a soul known thing, but I feel like you would know the actual whether this is known or not. So I'm going to ask you. The leap is nature would help us become more of our best selves through epigenetics. Like we could probably track how our genes respond when we spend a significant amount of time with nature, any of the elements, but especially like outside. Is that true? Am I making that up? Or is that something that you believe in as well?
That's absolutely true. Something that I truly believe in. I've experienced for myself, and it's also backed up by peer-reviewed, published research also. So, there's a lot of articles that talk about green therapy. There's so many different names for these kinds of therapies, like in the mainstream Western psychology world, like where therapists will actually go on walks with their clients. Or they'll take their clients to the community garden. It's horticultural therapy, which is like gardening therapy. And there's metrics for so many different markers, like your BPI, there's your cholesterol, your heart rate. All these things have been tracked with people before and after being immersed in nature. And even like a step further into the realm that we're talking about is these studies have actually been shown to make improvements within people in indoor spaces. So like in hospital settings or in clinics, a lot of more progressive places are trying to bring these different elements. And like there's one study that really tickled me, like a mural, like an artist painting a nature scene, like a forest, can actually improve your serotonin levels and more neurotransmitters that actually are going to aid in boosting your mood. And so, it actually it's quite amazing what our neurons can touch, even if it's not real, which then comes down to, again, like in our play spaces with our children, even having like, some pictures or canvases or whatever of nature, like they might not even be realizing that it's there and that, maybe there's a picture of a mangrove, like, I don't know. And they're seeing that and they don't really realize that it's actually helping them because our brains are actually picking up on all the little details around us, even if we can't articulate or, really notice what they are.
It doesn't take a cognitive experience to have the benefits. We don't have to be like, I am now immersed in nature, therefore brain process my epigenetics correctly and feng shui my life. It just kind of happens. We have that
Absolutely.
we've all experienced that, right? We've all experienced going on a walk or being outside in the early morning sunshine or even being beneath the stars and coming back feeling more connected, more rejuvenated. And you talk a lot about this. You talk about being connected to nature and grounding and all of these beautiful, amazing concepts. How can we take some of those ways that we connect with the earth and bring them inside with us, specifically into the playroom, but into our homes in general? How can we make the inside as good as the outside?
Yeah, so one of the main things that I think are really important that we haven't touched on are windows. Windows are really important, and not just windows, but like open windows. So a lot of times, like I know my mom has a hard time with this one because she thinks like, if the air conditioning is on, like all the windows need to be shut because then you're like wasting money.
I hear my dad. I totally hear my dad. Like, we're not air conditioning the neighborhood.
Exactly. And it's interesting because I've been trying to teach her these things for about like 2 years and she's kind of catching on where maybe will do it for a few days out of the week. But really just crack, like it could be the smallest crack ever. But if you're thinking of your home, right, a modern home that has closed doors, closed windows, and you never are cracking them, you just have either the heat if you're in winter or the air conditioning if you're in a hotter place, it's like you're living in a Tupperware box, a Tupperware container. And so think about animals, right? Like when and maybe not all of us do this, but if your kids like little critters and you're like going to catch them in a jar or in a Tupperware, you poke holes, right? Like they need that flow of oxygen. And so we poke holes in the jars for their caterpillars or the lightning bugs, like whatever it is. But what about us? Like, where are our holes? And so for me, that's the windows. And so if you can just crack them, even if you have your air conditioning running, like the most minimal crack, and maybe you can find the window that's the furthest away from the air conditioner. Or like, yeah, first with the heat. And it's actually, I think, even more important when the heat is on to crack the windows than the opposite. But they're both really important. So that's the earth element, it's minerals. You have the light. So some salt lamps have the ability to have like natural fire, or they're just electric. But salt lamps are a good one. Those are really safe typically. They don't get super hot, so your little ones can touch it with no problem. A big thing that we've had in our lives, and for my life for a long time, and my son's whole life, has been crystals. And so if you think of crystals, like healing crystals, like quartz, rose quartz, tiger's eye, those are some of the common ones, like jade, amethyst, having crystals in your play space. And of course, if you have little ones, then obviously the bigger, the better. So they're not not a choking hazard, but we have crystals all around our house. That's a great one. Even like sage. So if you guys are familiar with like dried herbs, like it could be lavender, it could be sage, it could be, there's so many different dried leaves that people will bundle up, and you can light one in kind of like an incense. You blow it out so there's no active flame, and it's just like the embers, and you can just like wave the smoke around. It clears the energy. There's different leaves have different uses. You could always look that up. Like if you need a calming energy in your play space, you'd want to use lavender. If you want a purifying, kind of clearing the energy, like really cleansing, you would be sage. So there's different dried leaves that you can use for that, but that's also bringing nature in the home. And then there's like tech options too that can help incorporate nature into your home. So I don't personally have one, but I have a lot of friends who use grounding mats, where you can purchase a grounding mat and you can either sleep on it at night, or you can lay on it, put your feet on it and stand on it. Grounding mats are awesome. I use a lot of frequency support in my home, whether it's a sound bowl, or the frequency devices that I have. There's just so many ways.
What are your frequency devices? What is
I have a HEALY, and I have two different devices for the HEALY. So a HEALY is a frequency device. It's like a wearable device where it emits the frequency into your bioenergetic field. So if you're wearing it, it has like a circumference that will influence your cells, and you can program. So there's over millions of frequencies, but there's a select few programs depending on what edition you get, and you can just automatically say like, oh, I need this for my emotional support, or I need it because I'm having some kidney pain, or like whatever it is. It could be something physical, mental, or spiritual, and you can just program the frequency from an app on your phone, and it can emit to that. And there's the other HEALY device, which is called the Mag HEALY, and it's like, my son calls it the spaceship HEALY because it looks like this little white spaceship. And that one is best for play spaces. So if you're interested in frequency support for your play space, the Mag HEALY is best because it has a radius of 3 meters in every direction. So it can actually like pretty much support and emit the frequencies into an entire room. And so for him, I use a lot of like the family playing one, or family harmony. Sometimes before bed, I'll use relaxation. It just really depends on what you really need. But it's very, very versatile. And I've been using HEALY for a year now, and I also sell them. So we can always link up, and we can about that. And frequency support is everywhere, right? Like frequencies are in everything. And so again, that could be even just sound healing. So sometimes people have like playlists where you can find artists to tune their instruments to a certain frequency, and you'll see like the hertz, and you'll see the count, and different hertz will mean different things or support different things. You can use sound healing, which is frequency support in your play space. Just so many things that you can dive into.
That is so fun. I've actually never talked to anybody about this, so this is extra fun. I've used the Spooky 2, which is more of a body-based frequency healing device. And I thought it's been so fun to experiment with. It's a lot. It feels like the JavaScript edition of how to deal with frequencies versus like I don't know, like a Wix or something. Like it feels like I have to learn how to code. It's not very user-friendly, but the mechanics of this are so fascinating. And it's like a diffuser. We all put essential oils in diffusers and like we're all used to that now. But this is like the diffuser for frequencies, which I find so fascinating and wonderful. And we're receiving frequencies all of the time. So we might as well be more direct and invitational.
Absolutely. I
That's
agree.
cool. I'm excited to look into that.
Yeah, it's really awesome. And like you were saying, we are always receiving frequencies. Like if you're listening to this podcast, you're receiving frequency through our voices, whether it's your computer or your cell phone. And unfortunately, if you're in the modern Western society, you're actually receiving a lot more negative frequencies than our bodies should actually be able to handle. So those devices can actually block like EMF, they can block 5G, they can block radiation. So it's really nice and pretty neat to play around with.
That's so fun. So you can like counter frequency and productive frequency. That's so cool. How fascinating. Okay, so there's elements that we see, there's elements that we sense. Would you call that like ether work? What is frequency? Was there an element that goes with frequency?
Absolutely, you're spot on. That is ether.
So then there's elements that we touch and like taste and can interact with physically. What about our sight? I mean, I guess all of the elements are a sight thing too. Like we can incorporate wood. That's a taste. I mean, your kids are going to be eating your wood furniture. Taste, touch, sight. Smell. We've talked about smell. What do you do for sight? Do you like hang crystals ever, or do you recommend certain colors with feng shui, or do you have any feelings about that?
Yeah, so I'm super big into color therapy, chromiotherapy. It's so potent and powerful. And I would say, again, it's based off of unique needs. But as far as like a constant, like if you're trying to pick out like a wall color, then the most like therapeutic color you can pick are like shades of green, shades of blue, shades of yellow. But again, like this could be, if you're picking out like furniture colors, that could be so different. And within feng shui, like even outside of feng shui, just chromiotherapy in general, each color has a corresponding mood or a corresponding like emotion kind of brings out of us each. And if you are familiar with like the chakra system, you can kind of go based off of that. So maybe your children have been bickering and they kind of been arguing, not being able to see eye to eye. Then maybe you want to do green for the heart chakra and blue for the throat chakra to communicate and connect. And
we need that.
Yeah.
Send it over.
Yeah. And I mean, I believe in it so strongly that I even feel like when we're wearing a particular color, it can influence the way our day goes. So like typically if you are going into an interview or maybe you're meeting a new group of people that you've never met before, or joining a new event in your area, like wearing yellow, like the friendly color that kind of attracts people to you. So if you want that kind of energy, then like wear yellow, or there's different ways to play around with it. But definitely say if you're picking out wall color that's like more permanent per se, to like stick with like the greens, the blues, like the light pale yellows in a play space. Sure.
I love that. I feel like now the next book that we need to write together is going to be chromiotherapy and epigenetics, and how the way you see colors, we have like the color that presents itself, right? It has a frequency, it has a light, stagnant, mathematically proven entity where we all see red between these two spectrums, whatever. But also there's a spiritual component to color that I think trumps. Tell me what you think. I think it trumps what the color naturally is and the effect that it would have on a general populace. So if we took like 10,000 randomly selected individuals, how they would react to red, we would have an answer. But how you react to red is going to be so unique to you that you have to become attuned to your body. You have to listen to yourself. You have to understand your feelings and how you operate, because we can give you feng shui advice. We can give you color advice. We can give you sound bowl advice, but however you feel about it in your current state and however you want to feel about it in the future, that's going to affect how you play and the results that you see. Is it like epigenetics?
It is. It's absolutely right, because in epigenetics,
Is there an analogy?
Each person is so individual. I would never apply a one size fit all regimen to all my clients. Like, it's so unique. So same, like you said, same goes for color. For some people, red is like they become on high alert and it's like a danger. And then for other people, red is like more sensual and they feel a little bit spicy. So it just really depends on who you are and how you're feeling in any given moment, really.
It's so good. So the beauty of this to me is that you get to choose. It all circles right back to you get to choose. And there are so many choices. And for a lot of people I talk to, choices become really paralyzing. So what would your advice be to the people who have just heard you tell us 100 kick butt ideas about how to become more present and in tune with nature and aligned in our play spaces? How would you suggest they move forward for them?
Yes, I love that question to really narrow it down. I would say if you don't already have indoor plants, that is the most magical place that you can start, not only for you, but your kids as well, because also not only does it have those therapeutic benefits that we've been talking about, but also it gives the skill of nurturing, right? Like when you have to take care of something, the children learning about how water and why they need water, why the plants need water, learning about photosynthesis and having the plant in sunlight. So it brings on all these other layers that some of these other recommendations might not. But yeah, I think it's really special, like to see your children, especially like, if you're a boy mom out there, seeing your boys like really soften and take care of the plant and like be gentle with it. It's just so precious. So I definitely recommend, if there's like one thing out of all the things, like just invest in one house plant. I know if you're in the US, you can probably find a house plant that's $5. It might be small, but obviously it grows. You can repot it and it can get even bigger. But just start somewhere small like that and see where it brings you.
That is wonderful advice. It makes me feel all giddy inside. We just got a lettuce grow hydroponic garden, which is an indoor tower garden. We're renovating an assisted living here, as you can see. But we got it for the residents, which I think will be fun for them for the same reasons it's fun for children and adults. But also, it's been fascinating. You bring something that's alive into your space, but a pet, a plant, but especially these natural elements, the kids can't really ruin it. Like you can take scissors to basil and the basil grows back, or you just eat it for dinner. Like there's really not a huge downside. They can knock over a pot of soil and it's annoying, but it's not going to break stuff, right? It's just such a cool interaction between kids and nature. Kids can't hurt nature, which is why we take them into nature when we're like, get out of my house, you're ruining stuff. We're like, go outside, because we know that Mother Earth can support us. And the more that we bring that energy into our playrooms and into our hearts, really, that our kids aren't there to hurt, they're there to explore. Sometimes it doesn't look like appropriate behavior for a 25-year-old. Sometimes you don't want a 50-year-old acting like that, jumping on the furniture. But that's the way kids are and do, and we could do well to learn from them. So, Simone, if everyone could leave with a houseplant and one spiritual go-to, something to remember to keep them in the zone of creativity in their playrooms, what would be that second component?
Your breath. I think that is so beneficial in every way possible for parents. I mean, for every human, but particularly within parenting, right? Our kids are going cuckoo crazy, and we just take that one deep breath. It can change the entire trajectory of how we handle the situation. And so the spiritual component is, our breath is the first thing that we do when we come to this life, and it's the last thing that we do when we leave this life. And so when we can pay more attention to our breath and be intentional about it, meaning, that we're actually bringing awareness to it, it can change our entire nervous system. It can rewire our entire systems so that we are operating from a default that's calm and relaxed and that rest and digest state of your parasympathetic nervous system, of the fight or flight, which I think the majority of humans in the Western world their default mode is fight or flight. We're in that kind of high anxiety, high stress environment most of the day, if not all day, every day. And so when we can recenter and come back to breath, it'll completely change your own personal energy. Your children will pick up on it. They will mimic that. So then their personal energy will change. And then that means that the entire energy of your household will shift. Again, going back to that harmonious energy that we all.
Amen and amen. Simone Nofel, you guys, hearty and free. You can find her on Instagram. You can find her on the web. What's going on right now in your world? Do you have anything that everybody can sign up for? How can we follow you and stalk you?
Yeah, I would say follow my Instagram. There's something that's coming out next week that I can't say right now that I'm a part of. But
secrets. By the time this is live, it will be live.
Yes, you'll see. I'm involved with a really cool project. I can tell you it's a summit. It is a summit, and it's for parents and educators alike. And it's going to be really awesome. I have a free offering for everybody who signs up for that summit. So if you're there and you're on my page, make sure you sign up. It's a free summit. And you'll also get a free offering from me.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. What a pleasure. So amazing. Thank you for being here. And everybody out there.
Thank you for having me.
Houseplant. Oh yeah. Come back every day. And we're coming to your house. We're coming to your house next time. Everybody go buy a houseplant, take lots of deep breaths, and go make a mess. We'll talk to you next time. Hey, if you're loving what you're hearing and you want to know more, I invite you to go over to carlythornock.com and you can pick up a free guide. These are the 3 biggest mistakes that people make when setting up their houses. And I don't want you to make the same mistakes. And of course, in true Carly fashion, it's going to be a lot less about the house and a lot more about your perspective about the house, but with some good housey tips thrown in. Go over to carlythornock.com and you can pick up that today.